All right, welcome back to the main room, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed both sessions on modernizing training and emerging technology and their legal issues. So we are going to round out today's event with improving collaboration through pre-construction innovations. With Skanska, who is also a sponsor of the event. So I'm going to introduce our speaker, and then I will let him get right into it. So Sam Jadhav is our speaker today from Skanska, and he completed his Master's of Civil Engineering at the University of Cincinnati, has over 4 years of experience working in the local construction community. Sam's experience includes large projects in the healthcare, higher education, K through 12, hospitality, and commercial market sectors for a variety of clients. His current pre-construction role at Skanska USA building, Sam assists in developing detailed cost estimates through takeoffs and documented assumptions based on design documents. So I will turn it over to Sam.
Thank you, Jen. So hopefully everyone is able to hear me speak and see the screen as well. So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being a part of this session on improving collaboration through pre-construction innovations. So essentially what this session entails for the audience is to kind of walk through the different flavors of pre-construction innovations that help us walk through different aspects of it. So innovations relating to people, innovations relating to tech, innovation relating to your basic understanding of the processes involved within the pre-construction stage. So before we kind of jump in and try to improve collaboration, let's take a step back over here and kind of understand what really collaboration is. So I did some digging up, and essentially Wikipedia defines collaboration as a process of two or more people or organizations working together to complete a task or achieve a common goal. So essentially I've taken the liberty over here to redefine what collaboration means for Skanska. So over at Skanska, collaboration is defined by a strong network of 35,000 employees across different geographic locations and backgrounds, preaching and practicing a unified idea of care for life, understanding the safety and health involved in our projects, and at the same time caring for our environment. What Skanska defines collaboration is also about acting ethically and transparently across all of our projects, all while generating a whopping $7.6 billion in revenue within the US economy. And locally, the essence of collaboration for Skanska is all about being better together with the community, with our owners, our subcontractors, our design partners, our construction manager partners, by cherishing and fostering local relations that are formed organically within the local community. So essentially, this is the true sense of what Skanska deems collaboration to be. And last but not the least, on a more personal level, collaboration is all about committing to customers. The same way ACI is committed to enhancing the local AEC market within the greater Cincinnati area. So hopefully I've managed to gain some credibility with the audience so that I can introduce myself and talk about my work with Skanska. So I've been fortunate enough over my time with Skanska to work through both the construction and pre-construction domain with implementing technology, both on the BIM and VDC side of things, and also on the early stages of pre-construction work as well. So let's kind of switch gears over here and talk about innovation. So through my experience working with different market domains, whether it's higher education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's your K through 12 market, what essentially innovation is characterized externally is by tech and gizmos and use of different processes out there. So specific to the AEC industry, innovation involves or revolves around BIM, use of 3D modeling, use of augmented reality and virtual reality, using drones to fly over a job site to capture safety measures and enhance data, using traffic study examples within the projects that are located in high density downtown areas to kind of give us a good sense of logistics. But internally, in its core sense, what innovation is truly characterized by is the people involved with it. So in my sense, innovation is truly about celebrating people. And I assure you right now, someone somewhere within your company is innovating right now. It's all about finding the right people and celebrating them. True innovation only happens when you focus on the people and let technology help them communicate their expertise. And I can proudly say that I'm one of the fortunate ones who work for a company that celebrate people, that celebrate process, and that celebrates technology along with it. So now that I've managed to kind of get some brownie points with my boss, I can move ahead and kind of work through the different innovations. But before that, let's jump into our first poll question. Jen, are you able to pull up the responses on the screen?
Yes, we still have a couple people answering, but in just a couple seconds.
Thank you. Awesome. Which kind of deliberately jumps into our next slide as to where do you see yourself in this whole AECO information chain. So based on your audience poll, we were looking at construction managers and subcontractors to be a majority of our audience. And the reason I bring that up is essentially, depending on where you stand within this chain, your interpretation and your influence over the pre-construction thought bubble differs. If you are more on the authoring side, as an architect and engineer would be, you would have more control over authoring of the data. If you're more involved in a construction manager role, you are more involved not only with delegating the authoring softwares and the authoring processes involved with the data, but also communicating the same data downstream to our trade partners and subcontractors. And if you are a subcontractor or a vendor within this information chain, essentially you're kind of looking at the downstream side of all the data and knowledge that has been accumulated within this process so far. So right from a conceptual thought process that starts within the design team, which gets conditioned with the help of your construction manager, that's the data essentially that gets consumed by a subcontractor and a trade partner to kind of form the work around it. So let's look at our first collaboration strategy, looking at the strongest link within the AEC environment, which is our subcontractors. So essentially, we are talking about how can we leverage the market to ensure that adequate coverage for all of your trades is achievable on different projects while maintaining a healthy competition among our bidders. So it is definitely achieved through a cognizant sourcing needs. It is definitely achieved and accounted for your rapid escalation. You need to definitely plan for effective labor force requirements, and you need to have for an effective buyout strategy for you to be kind of collaborative within the strongest link. Now let's see a couple of examples how Skanska enlists its subcontractor outreach strategy and thereby strengthens and collaborates the strongest link within the subcontractor environment. So the first one being the bid package optimization. So what I mean by bid package optimization is essentially customizing and creating project-specific bid packages and scopes of work to break the work and its related scope to achieve adequate coverage across the entire submarket. So what it truly entails is capturing the sense of your owner, of your client for a specific project and catering its needs through the subcontractor market. So a couple of examples on that would be essentially understanding for a specific project what your general trades package would entail. What do you need to have a separate bid package that caters towards your decorative metals and ornamental railings on the project, or can it all be clubbed into your structural steel package? These are simple yet effective strategies that help to kind of capitalize on the sub-market and the trade partner outreach on a specific project to deliver the most efficient value on that particular project. The next one talks about the Skanska pre-qualification process. So Skanska has partnered with TradeTap to help our trade partners get pre-qualified for future work with Skanska. So what it essentially entails for both Skanska and our trade partners is essentially getting key insights into the future work capabilities that are suitable for both the parties. So essentially, the subcontractors would go in and fill in their data with related to your previous work, their safety, their preferred work type, and it kind of all trickles down into a platform wherein construction managers such as Skanska would be able to go in and kind of pick and choose the right fit for the project. The next strategy as far as subcontractor outreach is with Skanska newsletter opportunity. So Skanska engages in community development by sending out future project opportunities that equip our trade partners to make more informed decisions on which projects to be associated with based on their preference in the near future. So essentially, you're taking that power of choice and putting it within the subcontractor and trade partner community to help them make a more better and informed decision on which projects they would need to be invited to, which projects they would need to be associated with. This all further down into a trade outreach event for every project specific within Skanska. And what that entails is essentially a meeting wherein all the prospective bidders for a particular project would come around, get more information on the project, and help build relations within the trade partner network as well. So essentially, if there are certain trade partners who would want to combine their forces with another subcontractor or kind of would love to work within a different bid package or scope of work alternative, trade outreach events facilitate those conversations, which essentially all begins with your Skanska newsletter opportunity. And lastly, it's all about understanding and optimizing the data that you have collected within the pre-construction workflow environment. And what I essentially mean by that is based on all the feedback through your pre-call opportunities, through your previous work performed with Skanska, data is gathered on different subcontractors relating to their scope of work, relating to their enterprise type. So essentially, if there are certain enterprise types such as MBE or WBE that would need more kind of clarification for a particular project type, those would be catered towards and organized accordingly based on the data gathered from our pre-con process to kind of optimize more diverse spend within the local community and thereby create a more stronger network of trade partner outreach. So what I'm really trying to say over here is all these strategies truly help us on the pre-construction side and not on the pre-construction side. So essentially, there is that stigma associated within our trade partner community around getting a lot of pre-construction involved in the process. So all the strategies so far help Skanska avoid that stigma of reconstruction and get more into a target-specific pre-construction process with the subcontractor market. The next, shifting gears here and kind of looking at the next part within the estimation process is truly understanding how the data gets captured within the estimation process. So this is more so for the estimators in the audience, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to relate to this more than ever, is more often than not, estimators have to go through blurred and pixelated plans within specific software, such as OSC, to kind of work through their takeoffs and kind of create their own estimate packages using raster images. So creating countless conditions, creating different areas within your estimate is kind of becomes strenuous on you because of the whole pre-construction and estimating workflows that cater towards the raster image workflow. So what's innovation and solution that Skanska has been using so far is trying to get away from that raster image focused softwares and processes and work more towards vector image workflows and processes. And in its pure and simplest terms, what it truly means is using your already available softwares such as Bluebeam to kind of help through the takeoff process. And a true definition or a differentiation between your raster image workflow and your vector image workflow is essentially for your vector image workflow, you can essentially zoom in into your plan as much as possible, and it would still not pixelate the entire drawing or the plan and the takeoffs associated with it. Now I can keep on going for hours and hours around the countless benefits that Bluebeam as an estimating software has to offer on the entire pre-construction process. But let me enlist a couple of them right now, just so that our estimators in the audience would challenge themselves to kind of get away from that used to workflows within on-screen takeoff and other raster image workflows, and kind of challenge them to focus more on your vector image workflows, which involve using Bluebeam. So instead of creating your countless conditions within your on-screen takeoff software, Bluebeam lets you create dynamic conditions that can essentially be reused from project to project. So if you have a specific color preference and a type preference associated with, let's say, structural steel, you can essentially keep adding to that within your Bluebeam tool chest and kind of keep reutilizing the same conditions from project to project so that it creates a consistent data entry within your estimates and your bid packages. Another great feature that I've personally loved with Bluebeam is essentially using the sort and filter functionalities. Again, going back to the old school on-screen takeoff processes, there is hardly any capability involved around sorting and filtering your data as you see with your takeoffs. But with Bluebeam, essentially, you can work through every single element that you see on your takeoff and kind of bifurcate it separately outside and sort and filter it depending on your needs. So essentially, looking at the big picture over here, it's all about trying to get away from that stagnant data workflows and try to get into more collaborative workflows, starting with the estimation process itself. Another aspect of, I would say, utilizing Bluebeam is around data collaboration. So far we have seen kind of the downstream losses of data that you would usually kind of entail in a more confined workflow within your estimating processes and workflow. But essentially with Bluebeam, one cool feature that can be used and that is getting used over at Skanska is your Bluebeam Studio. So what that essentially entails is kind of a virtual page flip session, if you may, essentially wherein all the key stakeholders would use Bluebeam Studio to kind of work around the same document, make their comments, make their edits to the document, and then a moderator within, so especially your estimator would kind of go in and capture and track all those comments within that environment. So what this truly entails is you are not losing key insights and data as you work through different drawings at different stages of your design. So whether it's capturing some essential logistical costs at your conceptual stage that maybe only a superintendent on the job site would be able to tell you, or whether it's truly capturing your general requirements on the project that a senior project manager would be able to kind of relate to at a conceptual stage. As an estimator and as for someone who is involved within the pre-construction processes, capturing those key insights right there on the document itself plays a huge role in kind of avoiding any losses associated with it. And more importantly, on a systemic level, it kind of helps to build a level of trust among the project team. So you're not kind of going back and forth, getting caught up between the differences and the delinquencies with a software, but kind of working through a unified software environment that helps to keep that trust going on. Now, as a construction manager, let's look at what I call it as an impact on a data path through the use of building information model. So as a construction manager, you are definitely not the author of all the data that's associated with the project type. You would call yourself a moderator. You could call yourself as someone who is in charge of keeping that data safe, but you cannot definitely call yourself to be an author on the particular project as it relates to the data paths. So what that means is you would have less control over trying to dictate your terms and conditions over to your designers as to how they would need to kind of create their drawings and designs at an early conceptual stage, but more so try to use the same influence in helping your designers truly understand how the downstream effect of that data would look like. A good example of that would be at your conceptual stage, working with your designers, working with your MEP engineers to kind of create a checklist at each stage of your design to help them understand what they truly need to focus on based on their Revit models. So do you truly need to have all of your wall types called out at your conceptual stage? Or would you rather have a clear definition between your interior wall types and exterior wall types at a conceptual stage? What level of development would you want to see at a schematic stage? Do you need to have all the asset information associated with all your mechanical equipments to be involved in the schematic stage? Or would you rather have a key outline plan for your main duct lines to be in conversation and in process at the schematic stage? Would you rather want all of your site details and your foundation details missing from your design development stage? Or would you rather focus on having a true detail or a typical detail associated with those foundation types within your design development stage? So it's essentially having such conversations with your design team and your engineers that truly facilitate a clear collaborative environment with data at its center. So essentially, the last infographic at the bottom that you see on your screen is when you are a non-author, when you are more of a moderator in the whole information chain, try not to focus more on dictating your terms and conditions with the authoring requirements, but try to work collaboratively with the authors to help them understand what you would like to do with the data, whether it's in a form of a design checklist at each design stage, whether it's just key inputs within your Revit model data, or whether it's use of certain applications that you would want to see from the design team as you move along with the design. So building on that, let's talk about Skanska's way of collaborating and kind of conditioning the Revit data with the help of the designers through the different stages. So as I had previously mentioned, instead of focusing your efforts on trying to kind of help your designers and dictate your designers on how they need to truly design their own buildings, shift that focus on more data-centric approach. So a good example of that would be, as you're looking up on your screen, at your conceptual stages, we worked collaboratively with a designer on a local Cincinnati project to help understand and code different wall types so that at a later stage, the same wall type codes, as you can see on the screen, which is essentially your 04, 040, and 041 and 042, could be used along your schematic stage, along your design development stage, and that would definitely make its way into your construction documents as well. So it's kind of essentially attributing and creating parameters around the data that has already been worked through with your design team and help them truly understand what it captures. So in this case, instead of focusing all their efforts on creating detailed designs of wall types at a schematic stage, what we asked our designers is to come up with a checklist or a code list, if you may, that entails what each wall type would look like, and then internally determine the cost associated with it. This essentially helps the design team to kind of get away from the tedious work of putting in unnecessary details at a schematic stage or a conceptual stage, and focus their efforts on creating more data-centric approach that could be uniformly used along the pre-construction process. Another good example that I would like to share a video on would be essentially working through a target value design at a conceptual stage. So during the conceptual stage, we usually work with the designers, and again, this is project specific and client specific, depending on what the needs are, to create a conceptual target value design. So at a very, very early stage, all your floors and roof are kind of detailed out, and then cost data is loaded into those massing models. Once the cost data is correctly loaded into your massing models, the designers are then able to freely modify their massing models, and in return, the costs associated with those deliverables would change. Here's a quick demonstration on how it looks. Essentially, you would create a massing model with dynamic pricing associated with it, as you can see on the screen. What it truly entails by dynamic pricing is essentially the cost associated with the pricing at that particular stage. So any modifications to your details by your designers would kind of truly entail a change in the pricing associated with that element within the project. You can also work towards essentially changing the dynamic features within the project type and get a cost associated with those dynamic changes in real time. So essentially, the whole process and the kind of thought process around creating a conceptual parametric estimating model is kind of help the designers in their early stages of design work freely through their mapping models with some form of real-time input associated with a high-level cost data around the big ticket items such as your floors and your roof areas. Taking that a step further, let's talk about immersive environments and how the whole collaboration associated with this immersive environment can be tracked with our owners and our clients. So for different flavors of your virtual reality models, you have your basic Revit plugins. So essentially, what I truly call it to be a WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get. If your designers have detailed it out within the Revit environment, you would be able to create a virtual reality experience through it. Now, there's the other side of the spectrum that talks about using high fidelity gaming engine principles to create a robust immersive environment for your owners and clients to truly experience the design changes and kind of help make informed decisions around it. Here's a quick video of a local project. So this is Austin Landing Boulevard patient room experience that our client went through. So essentially, the client was in the virtual reality realm, looking at the patient room and understanding the whole dynamics associated with your equipment, with your floor layout within the pre-construction stage. So any changes that they would feel necessary as part of the design process were captured through this immersive environment experience, and those changes were made into the design. So what this truly entails for our owners and our clients is understand or have a spatial reference to what it truly is to be within the space that is going to be built for them, and hence identify the costs associated with it. Here is another example that kind of tracks your cost data and your virtual reality experience simultaneously. So what you're about to see is just a specific element within a project type. In this case, we are looking at stairs and kind of having different options called out within the immersive environment for our owners and clients to understand what it truly feels for those elements to look like, and then have the costs associated with them in real time. So as you can see, the different types of stairs have been formulated using the Revit environment and kind of working through the different plugin options that you have within the Revit environment to give it a more virtual, immersive environment feel, but also at the same time, load that experience with cost data so that certain real-time decisions can be made. Now, the key thing to note over here, especially with your real-time immersive environments, is it takes a lot of efforts on getting it done correctly with the expectations set up front. So please try to target very specific details within the project that would deliver the most value to your client through the immersive environment. Shifting gears over here, let's talk about the pre-construction collaboration with the operations team. So far, we have talked about the data getting used within the pre-construction realm as it relates to your subcontractors and trade partners, as it relates to your designers, and as it relates to your clients. But another key aspect of collaboration is working through the same data with your operations as well. So what you're looking at on the screen is an Autodesk InfraWorks example of a 3D logistics plan. So we took the basic schematic model that the architects gave us and turned it into a logistical model that was kind of utilized to make key decisions on the traffic survey and base our logistical components around it. So a good software solution for that would be InfraWorks to kind of help you understand the traffic study and place real-time 3D logistical components to kind of help get that buyout from your clients and your operations team as you work through the pre-construction environment. Another example of using Revit models within the pre-construction processes is creating logistical plans based on the massing elements and kind of using the same data to determine your cut and fill. So right now on your screen, you're looking at a local Tri-Health Western Ridge project that utilized Revit modeling data to help deliver cut and fill quantities. But instead of kind of canceling the effect of the data, the same models were used in the logistical planning as well to kind of help shape the idea around the traffic involved within the project. So there are numerous examples around how the same data and models can be used right from your design conceptual stage all the way to your logistics planning and not cause any depth of data, as I call it, within the process. Another key component that I believe almost everybody in the audience would be familiar with would be use of building information model for 3D MEP coordination. So over at Skanska, we'd like to take this a step further and kind of use augmented reality on the site to help get some visual checks as to what the coordinated 3D data would look like. So again, the thought process stays the same. You get your data back at your conceptual stage, and instead of chucking that out and starting fresh, you kind of build up on the same data and kind of condition the data as it works through your design development stage, your construction documents, share it with your subcontractors to help them create fabrication models associated with it, and kind of try to keep the same chain of information within the operations facilities as well. So far, we have touched upon all the visual gadgets, gizmos, basic innovations, as we call it, associated with the pre-construction process. Now let's talk about data analytics and as it associates with the pre-construction process. So Skanska Metrics is a proprietary data collection and data analytics tool that Skanska utilizes internally to deliver predictable cost data models at every stage of the design process, more importantly, to supplement the design decisions at the very early stages of the design. So essentially, what you're looking at on your screen is an example of predictable cost data for a higher education domain for the Cincinnati market, which can be seen within the infographics. And let's walk through the infographics as you see it. On your top left, you are looking at your domain for the higher education, the cost adjustment to a city index, and essentially the time within that data. On your right, on your top right, you're looking at your total construction cost, and what that truly entails is essentially cost comparison of similar projects, similar Skanska projects across different geographic locations, and capturing the elements and costs associated with it on a high-level basis. So you see your substructure, shells, your interiors, kind of essentially broken down on a higher level with those specific projects, and kind of use that as a data conditioning tool to give out predictable cost studies for upcoming work. The bottom infographics, which talks about the program area, dives kind of deeper into the area breakdown within those particular projects and gets you essential quantities and percentage allowances associated with those areas. So essentially, in its simplest form, what we are truly looking at is using already available construction cost data within the Skanska environment and kind of leveraging that, conditioning it to predict, to have predictable cost models for future work. So a key example or a use case of that would be kind of to provide benchmarking data to our client needs. So essentially looking at your light fixture density, looking at your ductwork density, looking at your interior walls and partition density, and kind of getting a gut feeling, if you may, based on the work that has already been performed and kind of help predict those cost models for future scope of work. This definitely helps the designers at the early conceptual stage to kind of base their massing models around and thereby create a streamlined flow of information from their end. The next example, the kind of you're looking on your left is it essentially enlists out the different wall types as a percentage of wall area for projects within a specific geographic background. So you would need to confirm and understand the scope that has been called out within this particular data type and essentially utilize the cost associated with it for a future project based on that particular element. The example on your right is as it relates to the ductwork density and a predictable analysis on similar projects, the cost associated with it, and kind of a breakdown as to where the average needs to be with your ductwork density on similar projects. So overall, essentially improving your capabilities of your designers and your clients to make those informed decisions. Last but not the least, kind of looking at an example on increasing bid predictability. So the infographic on your left compares the cost adjusted by location and date to an estimate in development. So it's not always about delivering the data and the cost associated with it at the end stage. It is also about using these metrics to kind of help the pre-construction process to be guided along the way. The infographics on your right, again, talks about a particular element within a project type and kind of breaks it down based on the type and a square foot cost associated with it. So in its simplest sense, Skanska Metrics is a tool that collects historic cost data across all of the Skanska projects, conditions the data, and then delivers key insights that can be used for future projects. Now, please understand, this is not a magical software, if you may, that just with a push of a button spits out the permutations and combinations associated with the most optimized cost study for the project. At least not yet, but for now, let's just say that this is something that involves a lot of tedious data collection work, and I'm talking about tons and tons of hours to be put within your Excel document trying to collect the right data in the right format. So for the audience members out there who are kind of looking into their first steps within the data analytics portfolio, the biggest thing based on experience that I would like to share is concentrate on your efforts on data collection and doing it correctly. Because essentially all of your predictability models are governed by the same philosophy. It's garbage in, it's garbage out. With that, I would like to give my final thoughts on this presentation session, which is if there is something that doesn't challenge you, it won't definitely change you. So don't get bogged down by the definitions of high-tech gadgets and gizmos and all the processes out there. It starts with you. It starts small with you understanding what your processes look like and thereby improve the collaboration associated with it. Thank you.